We are back, everybody, and so thankful to have our special guest with us, Ben Hartsock. Ben, how you doing tonight, buddy?
Amazing, amazing, guys. Appreciate you guys having me on.
Oh man, we are tickled pink to have you. So grateful to have you with us tonight, man. And I want to start off by saying this. You posted a video back at the beginning of the season of when the 2002 national championship team got together for the Notre Dame game. And I got to watch that video. And Ben, I know that you're on Sirius XM and you do a lot of social media and a lot of media work in college football, and I love following all of that. You have a career in editing, brother, because I got teary-eyed, man. Having your kids and your family with you, taking them to their first Buckeye game,
Yeah.
going on the field and showing your phone, and brother, that was amazing stuff. And can I have permission to share that on our page?
Please, yeah. And I've got to completely deflect. The talent is in the editing. And I do have a young man, actually 20-something, right out of college, that puts my YouTube content together.
Nice.
His name's Chad Price. And so I had been wanting to, in the world of broadcasting, I get to see all these amazing sites and universities and stadiums. And I wanted to share for a long time, but it wasn't until I found someone that could put that video that I took into a digestible format. So I appreciate you saying that. It is very kind. You can check out my YouTube channel. It's just my name, Ben Hartsock. I've been to Ohio State and put together a video. I actually did Ohio State, Michigan in the Big House a year ago now. That was a bummer, but Ole Miss and Penn State and different places I've visited in my work as a broadcaster. So yeah, I will pass that along to my editor. I'm thankful for your kind words, but I can take zero credit other than I'm the guy there, that there's someone with real skill to put that together for me.
Ross County boy, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Southern Ohio, Ross County, got all the way to the big city. I've done a lot of work in Ross County for my job, so I know where you're from, my fan. Good heart of the earth, salt of the earth people there in Ross County. Tell us your recruiting story. How did Ben Hartsock go from the fields of Ross County and where the Appalachian starts to kind of creep into Ohio to Columbus, Ohio, being a Buckeye?
Yeah, my recruiting was in reverse. I recruited Ohio State. Getting recognized is a challenge sometimes, and our part of the country, our part of the state, isn't as well known as Cleveland or Cincinnati as far as being a football powerhouse. And so when I kind of figured, okay, I'm going to have some of the measurables to maybe play college football, of course I wanted to go to Ohio State. My mom, my dad, my brother, my sister, my aunts, like our family was completely indoctrinated in Buckeye culture. And so that's where I wanted to go. But from the part of the world that I grew up in, I wasn't getting those kind of looks. I was getting some smaller looks, Ohio University and West Virginia, Pittsburgh, kind of that kind of area. But I wanted to go to Ohio State, so I went on the offensive. And I started, if I found that John Cooper or Andy Geiger, the athletic director at the time, was speaking at a touchdown club or a Rotary, I went there. Nice. And put together a letter saying, I want to come play for the Buckeyes and try to get my name out there. I don't know how much it helped, but I tell it to young people, if you've got a dream, if you've got a school that you want to go for, don't wait around for them to find you. Go get found. Nobody's going to care more about your career than you do, and so be proactive. But I think my real turning point moment, and I know this with fact, was going to Ohio State's camps. They're more invite only now, but in my era, everybody went to the same camps, and so going there and proving myself against the competition that came in from across the country. I was actually roommates with Chris Sims, son of Phil Sims, who's now on NBC Sports. And so to be able to kind of calibrate the Buckeyes to where I fit in against good competition was good. And I'll never forget. I can point to the moment to where I caught the eye of Ohio State, and it was not running a 40-yard dash. It wasn't in a 7-on-7 drill. It was when the tight ends got pushed over three practice fields over, and we were just off to the side doing drill work. And it was the most, you wouldn't think this is the time I'm going to get evaluated or catch an eye, but we were doing tight end drill work, and I had a low level. His name's John Hill. He's been a high school coach now, but at that time he was the lowest rung on the Ohio State ladder. He would have been a graduate assistant or a student assistant at that time, but we were doing tight end drills, and I caught his eye. and he went and got the position coach, and then that position coach went and got the recruiting coordinator, who got the offensive coordinator, and next thing you know, John Cooper standing there watching me do drills at Ohio State. And so again, it's another lesson that I learned is everybody thinks it's that moment when the spotlight's on that's going to be
Right.
the fork in the road, but you never know when you're going to catch that person's eye, and so you have to be working your tail off every single moment. And so that's where I got caught, or where I got caught the eye, and from that point on, got on their radar, was offered the scholarship, and my life was forever changed because of it. Thankful for it.
All right, got our first question from a viewer right now who's watching. He says, "What up, Ben? This is from Ryan Wickerham." He says, "Ben, do you remember me from the Hudson Grill in Atlanta, Georgia, before the Peach Bowl and John Hicks Foundation beat Michigan dinner in Columbus?" I'm pretty sure if you meet Ryan, you're not going to not remember who he is.
No, I remember. Yeah, I remember Ryan. He came up, and Buckeye fans, they're everywhere, and you see him here, you see him there. That's the funny thing about seeing somebody in Atlanta, and I get this question often about it. We ended up making our home in Georgia after our NFL career, and people are like, "Why? Well, why would you ever leave Ohio?" Right? And I always, kind of jokingly say that I'm out doing the Lord's work, like a mission field, trying to convert these lost souls down here in the South to Buckeye fans. But I do remember that. Met Ryan a couple times there, both at the Hudson Grill and then at the John Hicks Foundation there in Columbus a couple months ago.
All right, Chris, you come up with the next question here for Ben. And by the way, all you who are watching, continue to ask your questions. Larry, I see yours. I'll ask yours when we get to the NFL portion. Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, Ben, got to ask. Eric asked you how you got there, but I got to know, what is your favorite memory from Ohio State?
Oh, man.
On the field or off?
The most treasured memory that I have is on the stage at the national championship game. That was there were two distinct memories that I have from that time they are family heirlooms, something that I'll treasure, that I'll never forget. Two things that happened on that championship stage. First, the moment of clarity. Even at 22 years old, there you stand there and you realize I'm on a championship stage and I'm on the other side of the camera. We're sports fans here, and we've all grown up watching, everybody from Patrick Mahomes to John Elway to Michael Jordan to all these guys stand on their championship stage and hold their championship trophy. And on that stage, I got the chance to hold the crystal football and to watch the confetti rain down. And it was something so few people get to go to their dream college. Fewer get to start. Fewer get to play in bowl games, and even a select few ever get to win the championship. So that moment was incredible. And then the other is a more personal that I mentioned. Both my parents are alums from Ohio State. My dad was a student in 1968, which was previous to our championship in 2002, the 68 team, super sophomores, Rex Kern and Jim Otis and those guys. Mm-hmm. That my dad was a senior that year, and growing up, I heard those stories of my father scrounging up enough money to go to Pasadena to a Rose Bowl where Ohio State was the championship after that season. And so to have kind of that incredible moment and experience for him and I to share that, seeing him in the stands on that same championship stage. He's not an emotional person, but the emotion was there that day of being able to be there. It was 36 years prior to when we did it in 2002. Unbelievable experiences, and thankful for those memories.
That's awesome.
All right, we've got Facebook user says, "Hi, Ben. Being a player for both coaches, what was the difference between Coach Coop and Coach Tress?" Great question.
Yeah, Coach Cooper, I think unfairly gets criticized. Everybody knows the struggles versus Michigan, but Coach Cooper was a tremendous developer of talent. He just did it differently. And one of the more distinct differences between Coach Cooper and Coach Tressel, Coach Cooper let his coaches coach. He was a CEO type of coach, and he had tremendous people that worked for him, John Tenuta and Fred Puggage and Bill Conley. So Coach Cooper was more let the coaches coach, whereas Coach Tressel came in and he was very involved, especially being an offensive coach, and I'm an offensive player. So he's calling plays, he's in the meetings, he was much more active in that role. And then the other thing that Coach Tressel did, he was extremely focused on reestablishing tradition. He was very he felt it was very important for us as a team to realize the history of Ohio State. We were doing book reports during training camp on the 46 national championship team at Ohio State with Bill Willis and Chuck Surrey and these guys. And so he was it was important for him to understand our history so that we knew the magnitude of what we were today, and also ultimately setting the tone for what future generations after us would be expected of them. That was distinctly unique to what Coach Tressel, him more than any other coach at any other program that I was a part of. That history and tradition was something he thought was very important.
That's a great answer. Gosh, I love Coach Tress, man. I made the joke last week, if I ever had to have dinner with two people, both present and in the past, it would be Jesus Christ and Coach Tressel. And I think if you had those two together, could you even imagine? Because
you're right.
Coach Tressel is a great man of faith, and gosh, that would be.
Coach Tressel's influence is the X's and O's obviously are impactful, but it's the day-to-day experiences that you see of how he built his life. Coach Tressel set models for us. He set habits for us that we didn't know at the time. Like and you say being a man of faith, I'm a Bible-believing Christian as well. But he modeled for us, and he built into our summer training camp the discipline of a quiet time. Now, Coach Tressel is a state employee. He can't implement or force hey, we're going to read 2 Thessalonians today. But he started every day. We started before practice, before taping, before anything. We would get together and have a meeting, and he would give us 5-10 minutes of quiet time with our winner's manual, the book that he's put together. It's now out in print form. And he would give us just a general topic. He had several tabs of leadership or discipline or, social issues that it was full of quotes, and we would pick a quote, write it down, and then just give a little thought to it. And so we always moaned about that. What are we doing? This is 10 minutes. Guys falling asleep. It's early in the morning. But I didn't realize it till after that, he's just modeling a centering, whether it be through your faith or simply a meditative, get yourself right to start the day. Those are small little things that at 19 years old, you're too dumb to realize what he's doing, but he's playing chess while we're playing checkers, and I'm thankful for those experiences he put in place for us.
Oh, man. That's a great story. You're not the only one who's told that. Bobby Carpenter talks a lot about that on his morning program. I really appreciate that. Here's a great question from Ryan. Who was your best assistant coach while at Ohio State? Ooh.
Oh, gosh. Your position coach is who you spend so much time with. Bill Conley was my tight ends coach. He was the recruiting coordinator when I was there. So obviously his influence was great. But I will tell you the power of a specific one singular interaction I had was with Jim Bowman. Jim Bowman came in as the offensive coordinator when Coach Tressel was brought on board. And Jim Bowman came from the NFL. He had been with the Philadelphia Eagles, I believe, before he came to Ohio State. And so all of us want to go pro. But at the same time, all of us, I don't care, who we were, you always kind of wonder, do we have what it takes? And so Jim Bowman, unsolicited, just came up to me after a practice, and he says, young man, you're gonna have a long and successful NFL career. And I'll tell you, we all kind of are nervous at times, and me more than most. I can't tell you how much that meant to me, that I wasn't asking him, Coach, do you think I'm good enough? No, he just saw that the work that I was putting in and thought, hey, I'm going to give him a pat on the back and an assurance of what I see in him. That to me is the essence of coaching, is seeing something in someone, a young person, that they don't see in themselves and bringing it out. It's like that block of marble that the artists say, I see what's inside of this block of marble. Let me chisel it away and bring it out. That is what coaches do, and that's what Jim Bowman did for me. That throughout my coaching, or throughout my Ohio State career, there were a couple of those moments. The Jim Bowman, right when I was a junior type, really thinking, man, I'm starting now, pretty good player. Maybe I can go NFL. And boy, that really buoyed me and helped me find some more belief. As a true freshman, when I was redshirting, it was Fred Puggage, the defensive linebackers coach and defensive coordinator. I'm lost in the purgatory of the scout team, fresh out of a small school in Southern Ohio, really wondering if I'm going to make it. I'm already a redshirt, but I'm doing my best in scout team, and I'll never forget, I was going against James Cotton. And if you guys remember James Cotton, that dude.
Oh, we know. He's still huge, man.
Yeah, I saw him at the Peach Bowl, and I'm like, I told him this story because I didn't know if he had remembered it or what. But I had done a nice job against James Cotton. And again, unsolicited, Fred Puggage, an All-American at Ohio State, a longtime NFL player, a ton of respect in the coaching world, came up to me and said, "You're going to help our football team, young man." And I'll tell you, in that moment where you're stuck in that scout team wondering if you've got what it takes, the power of a word of encouragement from someone that you think the world of was so powerful. So I got a few of those throughout the course of my time at Ohio State that it just reminds me now, as a person that a lot of people think has some sort of pedigree or some sort of respectability, how much influence I can have to hopefully positively encourage someone to say, hey, go chase that dream of yours.
The great transition actually into Larry Daniels' question, speaking on what you did right there. Larry says, welcome, Ben. How easy or difficult was the transition from OSU to the NFL?
It was difficult, but it was mental. If you get chosen, and I was drafted into the NFL, and so if you're drafted in the NFL, you can run fast enough, you're strong enough, you have the measurables. You're not drafted unless you have some sort of skill that you've demonstrated on tape that's good enough to be there. The reason why guys struggle often are mental. And so my biggest struggle was purely mental. It was going to the Indianapolis Colts, a team with great pedigree, Tony Dungy, Hall of Fame, Bill Polian, General Motors, Hall of Fame, Peyton Manning, Hall of Fame, all these guys. That was a train that was moving very fast. And you've got to jump on. That train's not slowing down. You've got to get on at their tempo and run with it, or you get left to the side. And I struggle with that. I'm a naturally wound tight type of person. And so I struggled in that space, even though I came from a tremendous pedigree of Ohio State, national champion, all Big Ten player, all of those things that should have made that transition easy. But for me, it was a real struggle. And so that's why I only lasted 2.5 seasons with that team. But thankfully, God had different plans for me. I got a fresh start with the Tennessee Titans. Things got going better there, and that was really the true launch for my NFL career, was starting in Tennessee when things started breaking my way, and I was able to break through some of my mental blocks. I wish I would have been able to stay with one time with Indianapolis, win that Super Bowl in 2006. I got cut right after training camp that year, so I was so close, but it wasn't in the cards for me.
Oh man, we got a couple more great questions here, Ben, before from these listeners. They're really soaking this up. I'm enjoying this. Thank you again so much. Let's see here. Let me throw this one at you here from Don Hoffer. I actually had this one on my list, Don. Have you ever considered coaching at Ohio State, or let's say anywhere for that instance, and following the footsteps of other former players currently on the coaching staff? Now, I know you've got 2 young daughters and a family, which probably I know we've heard James talk about this, in his situation. So maybe you can shine some light on that personally for everybody tonight.
Yeah, as hard as playing is, coaching is harder. Because as many hours as guys put in the locker room and the weight room and the practice fields, all that time we're there, the coaches are there. And then when we go home, the coaches are still there. And so the work-life, quote-unquote, balance it's next to impossible. And guys like Laurinaitis and Hartline and Freeman and these guys that are doing great things, Luke Fickell, those guys, I don't know that they can do anything else. It's almost like I heard a friend talk about, he got the offer to be a pastor in ministry, and the advice given to him is, they said, if you can do anything else with your life, do it. Because the only way you should get into ministry if there's nothing else you feel like on this earth that you can do. And I think the best coaches, that's what that is that there's nothing. These guys are all consumed by what that job, because it is a consuming type of job. My dad is a farmer in Southern Ohio. He still goes. He's in his mid-70s, and he still goes to the farm each and every day. My dad wakes up every day knowing I'm here to farm. And for me, I've never had that draw, and so I think I would be selling myself short, because I don't think that I'm consumed with it the way that these other guys are. And ultimately, the world for broadcasting for me has been a much better fit, where I get to share the passion. The thing, I've got a more narrow lens working with Sirius. I'm on college sports radio and I'm on the Big Ten channel. My focus is on those magical 4 years we have as college athletes, and I get to share what I think is most important about those foundational concepts in college that are in many ways crumbling around us. I spend a lot of time being the canary in the coal mine amidst what's happening in college athletics, and I buffer all that of my concerns by saying as long as it's the scarlet and gray, we'll still watch no matter what happens with all of the madness we're living in right now. But it certainly will be a lot different than what we knew college athletics to be.
Great answer. You're right about that. Real quick though, on that note, James Laurinaitis, how do you think he's going to do?
Oh, I think he's going to be spectacular. He is relational. He is the new generation of athletes. And I think this newest generation of coaches that are attracted to these types of athletes are a lot like Brian Hartline. I see a lot of Brian Hartline in James Laurinaitis, that those guys are magnetic in their personality, their pedigree, and the respect they have for the individual achievements they've had as college players and NFL players. They will have that credibility in spades. And I believe they're fundamentally in it for the right reasons. They're in it to say, hey, come here, be a part of the greatness that is this university and this developmental program at Ohio State. And every dream you have of NFL success and future success will be there for you. So I believe absolutely James Laurinaitis will be an absolute home run in the coaching industry.
All right. Brad Oberding says, Ben, do you think that Maurice Claret, this is a tough one. I don't know if you want to answer this or not. Maybe you will. Ben, do you think that Maurice Claret was toxic or positive for the O2 team?
Making it that binary is a little tricky. I talk with Maurice. I've had him on my Big Ten show and love him, but that was a tumultuous time. College is a tumultuous time in all of our lives, and Maurice even more so, because there was a lot of outside factors that he was working with. There's one thing that you can't deny, and I know you've talked to lots of guys on that O2 team. We all knew the day he showed up as an early enrollee, he was the real deal. Talent. But his struggle was always rolling into the brotherhood. Some of those things that especially as a freshman, there's rites of passage. Upperclassmen are the guys that go first in the drills. Well, Maurice wanted to kind of bucket that trend. He wanted to kind of push back on some of those rites of passage that have been in for generations. And those were some of the struggles, but we were always willing to bring him in. But I always say this about my time at Ohio State, like, to be young and dumb. So often we were simply naive to some of the outside things, like the whole thing that happened in Arizona with Maurice losing his friend and the tension between the athletic department and him. Maybe I was ignorant to it more than most, but I think a lot of us were so laser focused on why we're here and what we're doing that I think the coaches obviously help us try to compartmentalize that because we've got a task at hand. But I also think that's kind of the ignorance of youth as well. And so I'm thankful for the time that I had with Maurice. I'm also thankful for where he is now. He is absolutely crushing, and his time incarcerated, if you've heard him speak on these topics, were unbelievably formative for him. And while I'm sure he wouldn't wish it on his worst enemy, he has certainly capitalized on that crappy circumstance, and I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, he's doing such a positive work for a lot of young people right now. Very, very positive, like I said, and just looking forward to maybe getting to speak to him one day. Ben, I'm going to ask you a quick question. Chris, get your last one ready, and we're quickly running out of time, and I know you are a family man. I don't want to keep you too late tonight, Ben. The tight end position in Ryan Day's offense. What do you think, buddy? Wish you had that.
Stover, so it's a running joke in my radio show on the Big Ten channel. Every year, I get a Google alerts that say Ohio State tight ends haven't caught over 30 passes since Ben Hartsock in 2003. I have gotten that every preview season, late July, early August, the tight end preview. It's not since Ben Hartsock. And so my Big Ten buddies, they're all like, well, so you're the single season receiver record. No. And I'm like, No, it's like Ricky Dudley or John Frank. Like I'm just the most recent guy that actually caught a few passes, but for whatever reason, that statistic got caught in the Ohio State sports media ether. And so I've been rooting for Stover to beat. It was Ruckert before Stover, and the guys before him. And so thankfully for Stover, he at least broke through that barrier. I think he got 35, 36 by the end. The thing about it in Stover's always going to have to struggle with the fact that for the past 6 years, the Ohio State wide receiver room has been an absolute juggernaut, and it just continues to be an animal that feeds itself. And so even while, Jackson Smith and Jigba's moving on, Marvin Harrison and Fleming and these guys and Mbuka are still there. So that machine is rolling. And so ultimately you have to be ready when your opportunity comes. And so, when I was at Ohio State, Michael Jenkins was still doing his thing, and Drew Carter was still obviously doing his thing. And Coach Cooper reminded this at the reunion back in September. Santonio Holmes and Anthony Gonzalez were the scout team guys that year we won the national championship. And so there's always going to be somebody out there that you're having to compete against. But the good thing for a guy like me, a guy like Stover, is eventually they're going to X out. Okay, we may not lose, or we may not beat Ohio State, but we're not going to let Marvin Harrison Jr. beat us. And so then they're going to X him out. They may put punt vice coverage on him, and then they may do it to Julian Fleming, and they may do it to Mbuka, and eventually it'll find the opportunity to Stover. And so all you can do, instead of being frustrated about the balls that you're not getting thrown, is be ready when they do come. And that's what I've seen Stover do in huge, huge moments throughout his career.
You can share his nickname we gave him, Ben, on your show. I think it's perfect. We call him the Combine. Right? I mean, I think that's perfect.
Yeah, I've heard Farm Gronk.
Farm
I think
Gronk,
that one's pretty good as well. It's interesting, and I try to reach out to all the tight ends that come through that program at Ohio State, and it's fun with him because of the agricultural background, my own agricultural background. It's fun to see him capitalize. While I'm not a giant fan of what's going on with NIL, it's interesting to see how a guy like him that does have a different, unique kind of life experience and life circumstance, and how he's working and capitalizing. I don't know if you saw this from some steer show not too long ago. They had a costume show with the steer show that Stover and Steel Chambers were at, and there was a Black Angus steer dressed as the drum major at Ohio State. And Stover and the boys were there celebrating with him, and I thought, man, that is pretty slick.
Oh, Steel Chambers. Well, he's a national treasure as well. So, all right, Chris, go ahead and ask your last question before we wrap this up.
All right. Well, you kind of transitioned into it a little bit, Ben. You mentioned that you contact these guys that come through to play tight end at Ohio State. What do you think of this season's tight end room? This group that we have in there right now?
Well, let's see. I mean, everybody knows Stover. I've got I always bring the depth chart when I'm talking about there. Guy Scott's a guy that's been in the program, that's trying to do as best he can, and Mitch Rossi and Joe Royer. I mean, ultimately, they're going to continue to ask to be versatile. You see these guys say, they're all over the formation. They're on the line of scrimmage. They're off the line of scrimmage. They're going to be asked to be a big part of the run game. And ultimately, there will be critical times where they're going to be asked to come up with big catches in key moments. And that's all that you can ask of these guys. And so when you've got a guy like Stover, who's got a tremendous amount of experience, multiple year starter now, hopefully his injuries aren't as, he's fully recovered from his injuries. And then the guys that fill in around him, it's setting your stage for what's next. It took me 2 years backing up Darnell Sanders before I was the quote unquote, unquestioned starter. But those 2 years learning under a guy like Darnell and being his being his Robin to his Batman was huge. And so for those young guys to learn under Cade, to come back for this additional year, tremendous opportunity, tremendous experience, and I'm thankful that thankful he came back for one more year.
Yeah, I am as well. I think he's going to have a great year, and he's so valuable to this team. I really believe that. Ben, I could talk to you for hours, and I gotta bring you back because I want to dive into more of the what's going on in college football and the trajectory of where the sport is heading. Because I think your comments and your thoughts, the little ones you gave us there, are very valuable, and I would love to talk more to you about that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you my famous last question that I always ask everybody on the way out of any interview I do. And I know you're probably going to be like, gosh, Eric, how can I answer that in just a few minutes? But what does it mean to Ben Hartsock to be a Buckeye?
That is a great question and hard to wrap up in a little soundbite. Outside of my parents and the community I grew up in, my experience at Ohio State is what shaped me into what I am today. In every way, shape, or form, the work ethic that I have, the ability to discipline myself and challenge myself and work hard was taught in the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and was held accountable to people that came before me from coaches that either were at Ohio State, played at Ohio State. So the core foundations of who I am today, professionally, spiritually, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, were shaped by Coach Tressel, by Coach Cooper, by teammates, by the institution and the system that Ohio State represents. And that's why I am so passionate about defending the college model, the amateur model, because amateur athletics are our country's developer of young people. I say there are two things in this country that we have that develops more young people than anything else: the U.S. military and youth athletics, amateur athletics, and college is the crown jewel of that. And college athletics, this is my most recent illustration. College athletics are like a national park. If you've ever been to Yellowstone and you go right outside of the gate, there's every commercial water park and Walmart and every kind of luxury you would want. But as soon as you go through that gate, the national park is set apart. And college athletics has been that national park, this beautiful institution that is set apart and different. And right now, changing the foundations of professionalizing college sports, it's like building a water park next to Old Faithful. If you want to make money, and if money is our North Star, then you should be putting in condos next to the Grand Canyon. It's not the most efficient use of those resources financially to have those national parks the way they are, but we've set them apart. And college sports has been set apart for the entirety of our existence, but we are watching those things change, and it feels like that we're putting condos in right next to the Grand Canyon.
Yeah, it's sad in a lot of ways. But, I know there's two different sides to that debate, but man, I'm so thankful, Ben, that you came and you joined us tonight. Thank your dear wife for sharing you with us for about 30 minutes. Larry Daniels, thanks you for being tonight. Great show, he said. Thank you, Larry, for those kind words. We want to remind all of you, tune in next week. It's our 4th anniversary next week. That's right, 4 horsemen. We will have a lot of prizes. We want to share that with you. So you're not going to want to miss next weekend's show, everybody. Make sure you're here at 8 p.m. Sunday night next week so you can have a chance to win a nice little prize. Again, thank you so much, Ben. We truly appreciate it. We will have you back on. Hopefully, we hope you enjoyed your time with us.
I did.
As always, guys, remember, be kind to one another. I owe someone's OH, and sing Carmen, Ohio with all your heart. And until next time, OH!
I owe.
I owe.
Go Bucks.
Thanks, guys.